Welcome to this webinar about Instance Drift and ServiceNow. My name is Boris Meurs. I'm gonna tell you in this webinar how you can use ERM for SN to detect instance drift on ServiceNow. To my person, my name is Boris Meurs. I'm the CEO and founder of ERM for SN. I started getting contact with ServiceNow in the early days, 2009, in a project where we had to migrate CMDB from IBM Maximo to ServiceNow, which was kind of difficult because of these many tables which had to be migrated. And then I had the idea of building a product, ERM for SN, which can make lives easier when you work with ServiceNow. So what is ERM for SN? Oh, by the way, if you have questions, please use the Q&A button in Zoom. We will then address those points at the end of the webinar. So what is ERM for SN? ERM for SN stands for Entity Relationship Model for ServiceNow. ERM model itself is a common term when it comes to database or application design. So what it does, it takes your schema information from ServiceNow via REST API and visualize that, makes it human readable actually. This data would also be available in ServiceNow for users to look up, but kind of difficult because it's in a table structure format. Relationships are not visualized that well, and you also need to be admin to do that. So it might not be a good idea to grant BAs or so admin roles on ServiceNow just for that purpose. So it literally can solve or provide this data to various roles in your teams. So you can use this data model to document ServiceNow or to analyze out-of-the-box structure, etc. So it has many features, and it supports various roles in the ServiceNow teams. Features like table structure. So the easiest part is just to literally display the table as it is structured in ServiceNow. ServiceNow has this inheritance model, so you can extend the table. This is also visualized then. Then it also can show you an application or a scope structure. You can use it to create UML diagrams. It supports UML XML format, so it can be imported into professional case tools like Enterprise Architect. Then you can see if a table is in all environment, the table distribution is identical. If columns are different across instances, if records have changed over time on a column, then it supports platform upgrade. You can do type consistency checks. You can compare instances, and you can have releases. This is changes in ServiceNow over time. It has a schema health feature, and of course, one can download all those reports as an Excel format. In this webinar here, where it's about instance drift, we're gonna focus on those points here. So column differences over time, schema changes over time, and instance comparison. Now, the topic is instance drift. So what is instance drift exactly? So this definition here describes in my terms what instance drift means. It's a bigger topic than just that simple, but in general, if you start using ServiceNow and you're upgrading ServiceNow once a year, twice a year, then there is a certain risk that your instance is at the end a blend of versions. So Every time a record is touched in ServiceNow, ServiceNow flags this record as modified, and then it's not that record is not automatically upgraded when the platform is upgraded. So this means if one is not taking this serious and literally checks for platform upgrade conflicts every time, then there's a certain risk that you have not Tokyo, but you name it, any versions where you started up to the latest one as a blend. Now, where is the risk when you have a blend instance? Yeah, well, at the moment, it might still work. Everything might look okay, but there is a certain risk that changes on the data side or on the dictionary side cause in the future upgrade conflicts. So how does it come that you have a data change or a dictionary change? So a data change literally is super simple. You can just open a script include and then save it without any change. And this might then save a newer version. It shouldn't, but it does. So you can see that if you go to the conflicts on the platform upgrade, you will see that there are records which have been flagged as conflict, but nothing has changed. So changing a record, active, true, false, etc., can easily cause this. On the dictionary side, we can change the default value of a field or a length change, etc. In the moment that's done, the table or that field will not be upgraded, meaning you're stuck in the schema of that version. And this is mainly a problem when you are, let's say, reporting on such tables. So if you have integration with third parties, etc., or which is also a report, and then the schema change is happening, that's the best situation where you have your instance is upgraded easily, but you don't know that. So this is an indicator which is can cause issues when you have reports pointing to tables which are outdated. Or you have the opposite. You touch something and then the table is not changed, and then some parts of the application stop working, which would be a worst case scenario. So at the end, if one is not looking at the drift carefully, this can become very expensive. So if you have, if the point is, ServiceNow supports that, right? You have a platform upgrade log, but some customers have hundreds, if not thousands, skip changes in that platform upgrade. So it's very important that one looks at on that level on skip changes. That's the cheapest level actually to do. But above that, it becomes very expensive. So you have higher maintenance costs if you modify, let's say, script includes, or you modify a table and you have to keep that change over time. If you don't do that, or it depends on how an application is designed, sometimes there is just no alternative in just touching something out of the box. So these new functionalities then have to literally be merged into the changes which have been made, which is also very expensive. But then at the worst case scenario is if you have reached that version lock-in. So I know some ServiceNow customers which reached that point where they could not upgrade anymore, and then they had to start from scratch. So literally you take a vanilla ServiceNow instance and re-implement everything on top of that. So what can ERM for SN do here for you to not become in that situation and protect you from instance drift? So what ERM for SN does, as I said, it connects to the instance and downloads this meta information of the schema. And one can then easily compare this with another version of ServiceNow. And this other version can be a vanilla ServiceNow version. So it depends on what version you are or your ServiceNow instance is. We need a corresponding instance to compare with. So that requires not a cloning, because that would mean the same data, the same modified data. So a vanilla instance, let's say Tokyo patch 2, and all the plugins activated, which you have on your instance as well. And then we load all the schema information from both versions into ERM4SN, and we can easily compare this. I can show you that later. It's a question of seconds to have a report what has been changed between two versions of ServiceNow. One could also use that feature to do an impact analysis if you want to upgrade. So let's say you are on San Diego and you want to see what has been changed on the schema, on the table level on Tokyo. So the same thing is possible. Take a Tokyo version, download that, and then compare San Diego with Tokyo. We can create reports on that. We can create diagrams on that. I will show you that later. So there are two options, literally, of comparing ServiceNow instances, as I mentioned in the beginning. One is, let's call it sideways. We can compare instance with instance. This is what I mentioned earlier. So dev with test, or Tokyo with San Diego, or Tokyo with Tokyo vanilla. But what we also can do is ERM4SN is keeping the changes, the history of the changes in the database. So we can also compare Tokyo with the version before you made the last modification. So we have those two dimensions which we can use to display changes or discrepancies over versions or time. So let's demo this. Right. So we have a public demo instance. I'm going to do this on that one. These are the examples here and links. I'm going to start here, and you can then also look it up afterwards. I will share the presentation with you. So what do we see here? This is the UI of ERM4SN. Navigation here, list of scopes. When we have apps, apps is how it's structured on the left-hand side in ServiceNow. Then you can look up table columns. Then health indicates the health of applications. Release is snapshot over time. Diagram helps you to create UML diagrams, and analyze is compare between ServiceNow instances. I will demo ERM4SN, the various functionalities, in other webinars in the future. We're going to have the next one coming up where it's about out-of-the-box application analysis. And then the other one's going to be enterprise architecture. So UML diagram export, etc. I'm going to quickly show you here how this works. So we can look up, let's say, an application, APM. Oh, let's switch to another. Let's see here. Then we have it in this version. So I can switch between the environments in the top right corner. So this is how application portfolio management looks like. This is the scope. These are all the tables. And at the bottom, we have a diagram. There are two versions, a detailed version and a simple one, which contains all the table and relationship of that scope. We can do the same thing also with, let's see if we have CMDB here. It's quite a big one. Yeah, here, CMDB CI class models. And here it would be at the bottom, the class model of CMDB. So then we can do the same thing with application. We can do the same thing with tables. Let's go to tables, Linux. My favorite one here. This is an example with the CI Linux server. Hierarchy of the classes or the tables. Then siblings, the table details at the bottom here. Let's scroll down quickly. We have the table distribution. This is what we're going to talk about later. Then attributes which are not identical across all the various instances, back references, and the diagram again. So this is just a quick overview of ERM4SN. This is all public. You can also go to demo erm4sn.com and yeah, play with it if you like. So let's have a look at the schema comparison. So what we can do here, we can click on Analyze. And here we are on San Diego. Let's change to Tokyo. And I now want to compare Tokyo with Tokyo Vanilla. And I can do this based on tables. So it only shows tables which are, let's say, don't exist on either side. Then we can do this with columns or with column attributes. So columns is the same thing. A column exists on one schema, but not on the other. And the column attributes is column length has changed, for example. So if you do this, we get a report here as a table, and we see in detail that the length of asset tag has changed. So here in the Tokyo version, which is modified, the length is 80, and in the vanilla one, it's 40. And if, let's say, your instance has lots of changes, that would be one report, which can be downloaded as an Excel sheet, question of seconds, and you can compare one version of ServiceNow with the other one, like that. There is no easier way to do this. Even ServiceNow has no option to do that for you. So we also see other information, like there are additional fields have been introduced on a Linux server. Then this city field on the user has been modified as well. And then there is a sample user table, which is also not in place in the vanilla version of ServiceNow. So what we can do now here, we can have a look at the record here. And here we are now on the user table. Slightly jumped to the column, and this plus here indicates the change of that record. So the city field has been modified from 40 to 80. This is indicated here as well. So this is quite simple, easy to find changes on attributes here as well. So let's go back to the table. So here the same Linux server, asset tag length has changed here. So if we open that one quickly and scroll to the bottom, we also see that the asset tag is different between this version, Tokyo, and Tokyo Vanilla. So at the bottom here, it indicates also all the attributes per table which have changed. So if we click here, we're going to see a similar report, but only for that field, which is inherited from CMDB, from the CMDB table. Now, the other dimension over time is what we see here in release. So this is every time data gets loaded into ERM4SN, it creates a snapshot of the data. And one can use this to see changes over time. So in this case, in this snapshot, we see that in the Tokyo instance, same information as before, but in a different format. City has been changed, right? So there was a user which modified the record on the city field. Those fields have been introduced. Those columns have been introduced in this one. So this is similar view as before, but here it's over time. So let's go back to the presentation. So we looked at the schema comparison. So you can do this, as I said, either another environment or another city tag. So we can compare Tokyo with Tokyo Vanilla, or Def with Test, or Tokyo with Def, etc. So up to you. Depends on what data has been loaded into ERM for SN. Then we can see this also over time. So we have this release feature, and we see the change history on the table column as well. Here as a screenshot again, for documentation purpose. So the schema comparison and the snapshot releases. So, well, now if you think this is a cool tool, I like to know more. We partner with Bossert & Partner in Switzerland. Bossert & Partner are an IT recruitment agency, and the good thing about that is they have staff, right? So we can not only provide you the tool, which helps you to detect those changes or document your application, etc. We also have access to a wide range of specialists. We now have a new project starting up with the DevSecOps guy, where we look into changes on the code of ServiceNow to provide customers a very detailed report of what has been changed on a code level basis, and also BAs, architects, etc. Well, so that's it for now. The webinar was planned for 30 minutes. We have now 25, I think. If you have further questions, please ask now or reach out to us. The emails are on the screen here. If there are no further questions, then I'd like to thank you to have joined this webinar today. As mentioned, we're going to have follow-ups in about 4 weeks. The idea is to do this at least once a month. As said, next point will be out-of-the-box application analysis with ERM for SN, and then what I very like is UML diagrams with Enterprise Architect or Draw.io. Okay, in that case, no questions so far. I wish you all a very nice afternoon and hope to see you or, again in the next call. Bye-bye.